We're in. We're back in the Matrix here at Ruminate. How are you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. I'm John Voorhees, one of the co-hosts of this very fine program that we call Ruminate, along with Mr. Rob Knight.
John, do you maybe do any other podcasts? Like maybe some new ones, perhaps?
I do. I have to say what the show is at the top because I will forget what I'm doing. Rob, it's been a busy week, and I'm a little punchy. Mm-hmm. We have launched 2 new shows over at Mac Stories. One is one that I think a lot of people who listen to this show would probably enjoy, which is called NPC, which stands for Next Portable Console, not non-playable character. But it's I chose that name because of the NPC association. But it's all about portable gaming, handhelds, both retro, modern, Windows stuff, using your iPhone, using Android phones. It's really the whole gamut of video games done in handheld. And it is hosted by me and Federico and Brendan Bigley. And Brendan Bigley is someone who is on a podcast called Into the Aether. And that is a show that I have been a big fan of for many years. He's been doing that show for about 6 years, I believe. And he writes over at wavelengths.online. He has a great blog there where he writes about all sorts of topics, but, often video games. And so we are teaming up to do this podcast on Mac Story. So I'm really excited about it. If you like kind of the game talk that Rob and I do a lot, you might like this. You might like this show too. It's not going to be so much about the games themselves, more about the things you play on them. Because as we say it, as we like to say, it's about the games we take with us.
Yeah, no, I like that tagline.
Go ahead. Yeah, I think that was a pretty good one. That was when Brendan came up with. I thought that was really cool.
I also am going to have to. On the one hand, I want to listen to it because I'm interested, but my wallet is trembling at the thought of even listening to this show.
It is a wallet-trembling type of show. I will tell you that in a way, this is like many things that I have done on the internet. It is an excuse for me to not feel bad about all of the gaming hardware that I buy. Because now it's for work. But yes, I have another handheld in the mail right now that I'm waiting for that we were talking about right before we started recording. And I've got my eye on 1 or 2 others. It's just something that we're going to try to cover as best we can because it's like an exploding area between the retro handhelds and all the things that the Windows handheld manufacturers are doing right now. There's just a ton of stuff. And I expect we'll see, there's rumors that PlayStation is working on a handheld again. There are rumors that Microsoft is going to come out with something and that maybe it's even being built by the Surface team, which has done some pretty nice design work in the past. So there's just a lot out there to cover. So we're gonna do it every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. So this is actually a show that's going to alternate with Ruminate, which along with the other show, which I'll mention in a second, gives us an episode published every day of the work week, Monday to Friday. So there'll be something there for everybody's commute every single day from Mac Stories.
Yeah, I love that. That makes it so much easier because I don't have to.
I know. You don't have to go anywhere else.
Well, except when Ruminate comes out, because I can't listen to this again. That would be weird.
Oh, that's true. That is weird. Well, you may be the thing that pushes us into a weekly recording for NPC. I don't know. But for now, yes, it is just a bi-weekly show. That's a whole nother subject right there, Rob, is bi-weekly, fortnightly, or semi-weekly. What do they all mean? And I had occasion in getting ready for publishing this show to kind of revisit that. And Apple, at least, considers bi-weekly every 2 weeks and semi-weekly to be twice a week.
Interesting.
And they do not use fortnightly, although fortnightly I think is the least confusing of all of them because it really doesn't have any other use other than every other week as far as I know.
That's a fairly British word though, right? I don't hear that a lot.
It is. No, it is. And we actually changed some of the descriptions to fortnightly mainly because, you know how the internet is. They'll say, well, you say bi-weekly, but do you really mean twice a week? Like, no. I didn't want to answer all those questions.
No, that makes
but
sense.
Enough of bi-weekly. We also have a new show called Comfort Zone, which is a more traditional, up the alley of Mac Stories kind of show with Neil Young, who's one of our writers, and Chris Lawley and Matt Birchler. And the three of them are doing a weekly show that's all about getting out of your tech comfort zone, where they're going to bring new things to the show that they're trying, whether it's like hardware or software or a workflow, whatever it happens to be. And then they're going to, each week, one of them is going to challenge the others and themselves to try something brand new. And then they'll talk about that on the show, which I think is a really cool way of, I don't know, trying new things, learning new things, kind of having a communal experience where people can kind of follow along with Nilian and Chris and Matt and do it along with them and learn a little something as they do it. So that show is weekly on Thursdays on Mac Stories.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for both of these. This is, it's a big week. I mean, as you say, it's a lot of work for everybody involved, but they're out there and they're ready to go.
Yeah. It's just, there's always a big push. It's always more work than you think, actually getting these things out the door. The first episode of NPC is out on this Thursday. Comfort Zone will have its first full episode. It's also on YouTube, so if you want to watch it as video, you can do that instead, which I think is pretty cool. It's our first foray into that, and I wouldn't be surprised if we expand that sort of thing at some point. And if you're interested in these shows or any of the other ones, macstories.net/podcasts is where all those things are collected. So that's my little pitch for our growing family of podcasts. We grew from 4 to 6 this week, which is pretty fun, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's very exciting, and it's nice to see all the artwork all on one page as well. Those 6 shows, including us, including Ruminate.
Yeah. Very good artwork. We got some nice music for these 2 new shows too. Brendan helped us hook us up with an artist and with a musician, and they helped us put together some of that too. So it sounds really, really polished and nice and looks great.
Do you remember when we used to have a theme tune? I think that only lasted about 10 episodes.
Now that you mention it, I do, but I until you said it, it was not in my brain. So yeah, interesting. I forgot about that. What was that? We should bring that back just for maybe one episode. I don't know if you can find it on your hard drive.
Oh, I've got it. Yeah, don't you worry.
You got it.
Yeah, I've got it.
I don't have any. All right, I have no recollection of what it sounds like. So now I'll listen to this episode too. At least the beginning. I have snack news.
I did the thing, snack news. Let's do it.
Yes, I do. I went down to Video Game World, which is a very, very nice name for a very dumpy store that has lots and lots of video games, but they sell lots of other stuff. I've talked about the place before on this show. Last time I went, I did not buy anything, but they had all these Japanese snacks. So I thought, I'll try out one of these Japanese snacks, like Kit Kats, chips, whatever. I will say there was an overwhelming number of types of chips and crisps that were squid flavored, and those did not appeal to me at all. If somebody's willing to pay us buy a really big sponsorship for this show and make me, in return for me eating squid chips, maybe. Barring that, I'll do it for money is what I'm saying.
If somebody sends me squid chips, I'll eat them. And I'll report back. So There you go.
All right. Well, you'll have to be the squid chip guy because I won't do it. But I bought 2 things. I bought pink salt flavored potato chips. And these have, I don't know if I can actually even say this name, Agretsuko, which is, I believe, an animation show on Netflix that I've never watched. It's like a little raccoon who's a bit of a punk rocker, I guess.
Sure, yeah. I haven't watched it either, so.
Okay, he's on the package, and he's screaming into a microphone. I'm not sure what he has to do with potato chips. Probably nothing. But I tried these. Not good. Just regular potato chips with a cute raccoon on them. The verdict? Disappointing.
Yeah, so pink salt is the flavor. I'm not sure. Does pink salt have that much of a different flavor to Regular salt?
I don't think it has. No, I don't think so. They just taste like regular salt, and they're not very good as potato chips go anyway. So I do not recommend pink salt Japanese cartoon potato chips. But I do think that green tea Kit Kats are pretty cool. And I think it's the kind of thing that maybe you try it at first and you're like, this is weird. I will tell you, Jennifer did not like them. But I would describe them as kind of a white chocolate with a hint of tea flavor mixed into them. So they definitely do taste like tea. And they're crunchy. So they're a little bit like, I don't know if you would have them with your tea because that would probably be overkill. But just having one of these little Kit Kats, pretty good and different. I don't know. I kind of liked it. I got a bag of them for about $7. There are 10 of them in here. So
okay. So you've got a fair amount to keep you going then for a while.
I do. I have them sitting here in my office, and I only just broke these out right before the show, so I could be like, you could get the real first impressions of the green tea Kit Kat. It's the packaging is very, very green. Lots of tea, lots of green, all on the package. But yeah, it's quite good. Quite good.
Excellent. Well, that was snack news for this episode.
It was. We need to get into some very serious topics, and I know that you are getting ready to spend money, so we need to understand what you're thinking of buying.
Yeah, so you may remember, I can't remember when it was, a few episodes back when I spoke about my 8-bit Do mechanical keyboard that I bought.
Right.
And it had the super buttons, they call it, these two big red buttons that come with it, so you can set up macros and that kind of thing. They've just released another 4 different types of buttons and a little miniature keyboard with 4 buttons on it as well. And the 4-button, so they're calling it the Super ABXY, and it's adorable, and I'm definitely going to buy it.
It's only like $15, I think, too, right?
Correct.
Just looking at it.
Yeah, and they don't
$15 US.
Yeah, and they don't charge you for shipping either. So,
really, that's pretty good for something that's only 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I will be. I mean, I have this page open. I've had it open for a few days, but I need to just get my order in. But yeah, so I'm adding more buttons to my keyboard.
Nice. I had not seen that these were released, and I would absolutely get the same ones that you're getting, the ABXY ones. Those are really cool. I think. I mean, look. You gotta if you're gonna macro, if you're gonna automate, you ought to do it in style. None of these Steam Deck things. You want these brightly colored buttons that look like a controller.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I forgot to send you, which I will put in the show notes now, so you should be able to see it. They have a mechanical number pad that matches my keyboard, but it will also work as a standalone keyboard as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can use it as a number pad, but it also has a screen on it, so you can just use it as a calculator as well. This is a bit more expensive.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really cool. I like this.
Yeah.
That is neat.
This one I'm not so sure about. I don't think I want to spend $45 on a calculator, but it is a very cool product.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a number pad, I think having a separate device like this to the side is better. I don't like the asymmetry of having a number pad on the side of a keyboard and it just being so wide. But having something like this, if you need a number pad, I mean, I think this is a good way to go about it. Have you looked at all at this Super Stick thing that they have? It's like a giant joystick.
Mm-hmm. I have.
What does it do? What, I mean, like, is that like for doing your volume up and down? I mean, how does a joystick interact with a computer?
I'm not really sure. So this joystick came with I believe it was the C64 edition of the keyboard,
okay.
Or at least a version of.
For playing games? Is it for playing games?
I have no idea. If I can find it now. Accessories.
Maybe it moves your cursor or something.
Where is it? Let me type.
It's like a mouse.
Keyboard. Apparently I can't type. I don't actually know if it says what the joystick does. Where is it? C64 edition. So it comes with a keyboard.
It's a mystery is what it is.
Yeah, it doesn't actually say what it does at all. So I have no idea. I can't tell you.
Interesting. All right. Well, they've got that. That's interesting. I should not look in. Now you've got me on the 8-bit do site, Rob. This is not good. I did buy another 8-bit do not long ago.
Of course you did. You have all of them.
I got the. It's funny. We were talking about this on NPC. I posted an old 8-bit do controller on Instagram, and which immediately sent both Federico and Brendan scrambling to figure out what in the world this particular controller was. It's like this little blue one. I don't know. It's old, and I don't remember how old, and I think it's a version of their SN30 Pro, but it's much smaller than the current ones of those models, and colored very differently. A lot like a N64 controller, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, it just happened to be in a bin that I was digging through, so I took a picture of it, put it on Instagram. But I did buy a green transparent SN30 Pro on Brendan's recommendation because it's good with things like the iPad, and it's smallish, but and well built, and has 2 sticks, a D-pad, and face buttons. So pretty simple. It's got shoulder buttons too. But yeah, it's I don't know. I felt like it was clear, Rob. That's all the reason I needed right there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, of course. What else? Well, you don't need another reason. If it's clear plastic, it needs buying.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's become a bit of a thing with me lately. I wanted to ask you about this story you wrote about your Converse that you wore for your wedding and then kept wearing afterwards, and you're documenting how long they're lasting. I'm very interested in this because I have my own Converse, and I don't wear them every day, and they're not the sturdiest shoe around. But as a daily driver, I'm just curious, like how long it's going to take you to kind of wreck these shoes.
Yeah, so because usually, I've been buying Converse as the only shoes I wear pretty much for like 5-6 years maybe. But I normally rotate between a few different pairs. I've got a couple of other pairs downstairs that are, I've already worn them in and stuff. But because I knew the date of my wedding and I'd been wearing them every day since my wedding, I think it was about a month or so, I realised. So I was like, well, this is great because I know exactly how long it's been. And yeah, so if I look at my story, it took 196 days before they started to come apart a little bit. And then at 254 days, the insoles I started to notice are sort of feeling a little bit thin when I'm walking on uneven ground. Right. I'm still wearing them right now, so they're still going, but I'm not convinced they're going to last much longer.
Do you think you can stretch them out for a full year? You've still got a ways to go.
Maybe. Very possible. Yeah. I think it will depend on what the weather's like for the rest of the summer. I think if we get a lot of rain or, that kind of thing, I think that's going to affect it. But yeah, if it kind of stays dry for the next sort of 3-4 months, I might be able to make it an entire year with these.
So I had my very favorite pair of Converse where when they were doing slip-on versions that had a little bit of elastic between the shoe and the tongue and were kind of made to look somewhat worn out and frayed a little bit and faded out to begin with. And the soles were not quite as made of as sturdy a rubber as some of the other models, and so they didn't last all that long. And they don't make these anymore. At least not last time I looked. But I kind of like, that's kind of like how I use Converse, low-rise Converse, as kind of slip-on shoes. Even if I end up with the lace-up kind, I don't lace up. I end up tying them a couple of eyelets short of the top so that they're just easy to kind of slip on and off to walk down to the mailbox, check the mail, that kind of stuff. For me, they're like the shoes that I wear for that kind of thing, or maybe I'm running some errands and I'm just going in and out of shops. But if I'm walking, I don't know, farther, I tend to put on a pair of running shoes just to kind of go easy on my legs and my feet.
Yeah, I should definitely do that. Because actually the day that I noticed the insoles were getting thin, I walked a bit further than usual than I normally would on any given day. So I think that was probably where I noticed it more.
Right. And we have for instance, we have a pharmacy that we go to, and oftentimes I'll walk to it because it's only about a mile from my house. So it's just a little less than a mile. But that's it's a little far for the Converse because there's not a lot of cushioning in those shoes. And so sometimes that kind of aggravates if I'm, feeling sore or something. So I tend to wear running shoes if it's going to be that kind of distance and further. So Rob, we have a final topic, and I've been debating whether and how to talk about this idea that's been bubbling in my head for a while, because you and I have been talking a lot about the open web and people getting back into blogging and people linking to other people, doing link lists, and kind of rejuvenating a lot of the ideas that were from the early web that had often fallen by the wayside in a lot of corners just because of things like social media. And I kind of feel and then this all ties into a lot of my rants about things like OpenAI and what Google's doing with their AI, and the fact that now even Google has kind of turned on people as a platform. And there's a real, if you're writing on the web, I think that there's a fair assumption that you would like people to see what you're putting on the web. And without Google filling that role and making it easier for people to find things they're interested in, then we're kind of stuck in a lot of ways because there aren't a lot of good alternatives. There are, alternative browsers out there and alternative search engines and all that kind of stuff. But without Google, it just becomes more difficult. And so in a sense, I kind of feel like we're rebuilding the web. At least there's a small corner of the internet is thinking about rebuilding the web kind of on open terms. And, these kind of ideas have never really gone away, but I do feel like they're on the upswing these days, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The weblog Pomo, we worked out there was something like 1,000 blog posts written for that over the month. Oh, wow. I think it averaged out about 15 posts per person who said they were involved, but that's still a lot of blog posts just for 1 month.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And that was only the ones we knew about. There was probably more than that as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, and a lot of this kind of idea, a lot of people often will refer to it as the small web or something. And there's even RSS feeds where you can set them to show you your slow feeds, the ones where it's maybe just written by some individual who only posts a few times a week, and they're not they're not pumping out listicles every few hours to the internet, right? And that I think those features are really cool. I like them because it's a good way to avoid things that probably are more unique and more of interest to you from getting swamped amongst all the kind of the daily grind of things. But I also have this so here's the part that I wonder whether people will agree or whether they'll think I'm crazy. But I do feel like sometimes the idea of the small web is self-limiting. And it reminds me a little bit of some of the stuff we've seen with Mastodon where people get upset if somebody's trying to sell something or be commercial, or or if there's even businesses on Mastodon because it should be for individuals. And there's this kind of, I don't know if I want to call it anti-capitalistic attitude on Mastodon, but there's definitely a vibe that I think. I don't know. I don't personally like it a lot. I think it's exclusionary in a way. In the name of being inclusionary, sometimes people find themselves being exclusionary, if you follow me.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
No, go ahead. I'm curious what you think about that. Because I'm trying to step lightly on this because I do understand a lot of the concerns and why things like Mastodon exist, but I also have different notions about it myself a little bit too.
Yeah, I do know what you mean because there is definitely I think at least some people that talk about the small web or the indie web it's like, you can do all these nice things, but don't you dare make money. Like, don't you dare, like, start a business from that, which, like, I won't call out what it was, but there was a thing that was like, oh, submit websites that you like that are in the indie web or services. But if they even remotely had a commercial aspect, they were like, no, we won't accept those as submissions. And
right, it has to be like an open source project or something.
It has to be open source, or somebody just doing it because they love it, which is not a bad thing. But I also...
Right, and that's absolutely... Yeah, no, you're right, and I don't think it's a bad thing either. I think there's absolutely a place for that. But I do think excluding other approaches is wrong.
Yeah, because you end up in a situation where the only people that can contribute to whatever this web is we're talking about are, people with spare time, or people who can afford to take time off work, or their spare time to do this. But it's perfectly reasonable that somebody should want to make money, to at least earn something back from the work that they're doing.
Right. And I think that's right. And so I kind of come at this from what I would like to coin the term is, instead of the small web, I want to call it our web, which is the web that everybody makes for themselves and connects together on their own, which I think is, to me, captures better the idea of community and the idea of connecting to cool projects without the overlay of size or why it's being done, whether it's commercial or free or whatever it happens to be. And so, I kind of feel like an ambassador for this in a way, because I certainly have felt this friction directed towards Mac Stories because, Federico and I run Mac Stories because that's how we pay our bills. And I don't really apologize for that to anybody, because I think that it's perfectly appropriate to do that. We try to do it in a tasteful way. We try not to inundate people with advertising and all that stuff where we can avoid it. But I feel like there should be a place for a site like Mac Stories. There should be a place for individual creators on YouTube or whatever it happens to be, who are, maybe there's somebody making money through, buy me a coffee, or maybe there's somebody making money through YouTube ads on YouTube, or whatever it happens to be. I do think that should be part of this, and I do feel like the focus should be less on the commercial aspects of it and more on what the projects are and how to kind of connect individuals together who are doing interesting things. Individuals in small teams, small groups, whatever it happens to be, and they don't even necessarily have to be small. I'm kind of falling into my own trap just in describing it, but I'm trying to get provide a feel for what I'm talking about, which is it shouldn't be limited by what the goal of the project is. It should be based on what the project is. And I think that's a good kind of keeping that broader and being open to a commercial aspect is important, because if this renaissance of the web is going to grow and is going to get a foothold, people are going to have to be able to make money at it. You can't just have projects from people who have enough money on hand that they don't need the money, or, are students and have the time, or for whatever their circumstance happens to be where they can afford to just kind of give things away, because that just I think artificially limits all this stuff.
Absolutely. And then, I think we've seen time and time and again, if you've got a free service, either it's going to get abandoned because you can't afford to run it, or you don't have the time, or you end up, in a Twitter, a Facebook, a Google situation where the only way to make money is to take on investors. And, well, at this point it's dump AI in. It used to be ads and things like that, but, we can't end up in another situation where the things that we're all using just end up terrible again, and we've all got to move on and move all our content, or move where we're posting again like that. We need to avoid that again, because we don't want that. Nobody wants that.
Right. No, absolutely. And so, I mean, this is like something I actually think about this constantly because I feel like one of the things that is important for us to do at Mac Stories is as like a website that has a pretty good size audience. I mean, it's not huge or anything, but it's pretty good size. And it's hard to kind of build that these days, is to kind of try to spotlight some of these things that we find along the way. You know, obviously within the confines of kind of what we cover, but you know, to kind of bring all that help bring that stuff together. And I think that's what people should be trying to do with their individual blogs too. And I think, you know, if everybody's kind of rowing the boat in the same direction that way, there is, I think, a lot of interesting opportunities and exciting things that can be done with the web, because it's in a way, it's like it's being torn down around us. And we saw it with Twitter. When Twitter kind of cratered in on itself, it's different now. But there are a lot more options, and there are options that are more fitting for some people than others. I mean, you know, Mastodon, of course, is one of the big ones where we hang out, but there's also Threads and Blue Sky and all these different other things. And I think that there is those are all, you know, mostly, those are all pretty big projects. On the other hand, I think that if we're out from under the thumb of Google in a way, there are interesting things to be had and interesting websites to be built, because people are still going to want that kind of interesting content that they can't otherwise get. It's just that it's going to have to be on the people who are making it to do a better job of linking to each other in order for people to find it. Because I think discovery on the web is going to probably get a little bit harder before it gets better again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, we've discussed this with Google and search results.
Right.
We were pretty sure we discussed this about a year ago, that the search results just aren't good. And they're
horrible.
And they're only getting worse. And I think you're right, like linking to interesting things. You don't even have to have a commentary. You don't have to have a comment. You can just share a link and go, I read this thing and it was cool.
Right. It's something you can do on micro.blog, or it's something you can do on a dedicated site, whatever it is. I mean, there's lots of good ways to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, you know, I think, I don't know. I'm actually very optimistic about it all. I think it's a lot of cool opportunities out there, but it is kind of rough to see. I mean, there are some websites that are having a real tough time. I mean, Retro Dodo is a website about retro handhelds and games that I really like, that's based in the UK, and it has absolutely struggled. It's lost something like 90% of its Google traffic. And unfortunately, their entire business model was built on Google ads. Now, that's like one reason like why we haven't been crushed by this at Mac Stories, because we don't have any Google ads. I honestly couldn't tell you what our Google traffic is, because we don't even have Google Analytics on the site anymore. So, you know, there's new ways that existing on the web have to be done, I think. And you'll probably I think people will see less of the Google Ads stuff over time and more of things like subscription services, which raises its whole other set of issues, which is too much of the web being put behind paywalls, which is, that's like a constant tension. I mean, I deal with that all the time because we have Club Mac Stories, and we have some people who complain bitterly that we have any ads on Mac Stories, but they're also not willing to subscribe to Club Mac Stories. So it's like, well, you know, you kind of can't have that one both ways. We have a bunch of stuff we give away for free, and gladly do so, but we also have something that's paid for. And I think striking that balance is very, very hard. I know I think about it a lot, but I do think that there is a balance that's an okay balance, and probably will be done a lot more in the future with websites like a lot of these smaller niche audience type websites like Retro Dodo.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. I think it's changing all the time. I mean, like I say, you know, with Weblog Pomo and all this kind of stuff, I'm seeing so many personal blogs and, you know, people sort of starting up just little niche websites, you know, where they want to post about apps or, you know, video games or whatever. Like, that's great, but we need to be linking to stuff as well. Otherwise, nobody's going to find any of it.
Right, right. And I think that it's only, the thing is, it's worth linking profusely, really, because it's really one of those things where it takes a while for somebody to notice stuff. And I appreciate when people link stuff on Threads or Mastodon, and maybe I don't follow the link the first time, but then I say, oh, I think I remember seeing another story that somebody posted about this person's blog, and maybe I'll check this one out, and I'll click through, and then maybe I'll subscribe to it in RSS. I mean, that's just kind of like the organic nature of it all, and it's really slow going. I mean, if you're starting out writing a website, it's slow going to get people to visit, but eventually they do. And if you do good work and are consistent and keep delivering, then they do turn up. And that I think is the best part about the internet. And I'm excited that I think it's exciting to me that more people are doing it. And I'm always on the lookout for new sites. So anybody wants to send me a link to their site, hit me up on Mastodon. I always am always ready to kill a little time and do a little reading. That's what I do all day. So
absolutely, totally agree with you. Yeah, that goes for me too. Send them to me because I love subscribe to the RSS and I can catch all the posts coming in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I subscribe to tons of posts. I don't read a lot of posts, but and a lot of them are the big websites. But the ones that I really tend to save and put off to the side and spend some time are the ones from individuals who have actually something different and unique to say. That's not just kind of press releases reformatted by someone.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Should we wrap it up there then?
I think we should. I will talk to you in a couple of weeks.